Government. I want to thank President Kennedy for that introduction. It's great to see everybody here again at this terrific event. It's fitting that this conference falls on day one of Public Service Recognition Week, because certainly these days, hardworking public servants are due a little recognition for all the work that you do to create a high-performing government. So we're going to kick things off today with a talk about the value and benefits of public service. And there's no better person to do that than Congressman Chris Van Hollen, who represents the 8th District of Maryland. Since he was elected to Congress in 2002, Representative Van Hollen has been a staunch defender of federal employees and a strong advocate for government reforms, such as increased lobbying disclosure and better whistleblower protections. He serves in the House leadership and as the top Democrat on the House Budget Committee. So if you think you have it tough, imagine that job. According to roll call, he has earned near universal respect from his colleagues for his intellectual firepower and combination of policy and political chops. Please join me in welcoming Congressman Chris Van Hollen.
Thank you very much, Tom, and it's wonderful to be here this morning. Tom, thank you, Tim Clark, Catherine Peters, and all the folks at Government Executive Magazine. And I want to thank everybody in this room for gathering here on this important occasion as we look to ways to make government more efficient and to make sure that we live up to the moniker here, which is excellence in government. I have the privilege of representing a congressional district that is home to lots of federal agencies, to NIH, to NIST, to FDA, to NOAA, to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, just to name a couple. And so every day of the year, I have an opportunity to meet and talk to very hardworking federal employees who are dedicated to serving the public, to answering the call that John F. Kennedy talked about in his remarks. And it gives you a real sense of pride in the people who work for the government, which is why it always burns me up when we hear some of our Republican colleagues trying to gain political points by denigrating federal employees and by talking down about federal employees. It's also why it makes many of us angry when you see a small handful of federal employees betray the federal trust, betray the people's trust, as we saw with the small group of people in a part of GSA. That just makes the work of all of us here and all of us in Congress who believe in the important roles of government makes it that much harder because there are those that will cynically use that information not to try and improve government performance, but really to try and dismantle parts of government. And so all of us in this room need to make sure that we adhere to the highest standards because that's what the American people expect. And I'm confident that everybody here shares that vision. And whenever you see federal employees that may be doing something that betrays the federal trust, which obviously is the rarest of occasion, but we need to make it a zero happening occasion. And so I look to all of you to do that. Now, I do want to talk about the current federal budget situation, and we have Danny Werfel here and others from OMB who are going to talk a little later. But there are two fundamental issues. One fundamental issue is what's the shape and responsibility and role of the federal government. That's a major political discussion that we're having on Capitol Hill. That's a discussion that will carry into the next election. The other question is, how can we work together to make government more productive, more efficient? And I hope that some of the ideas that come out of this conference will help govern that discussion and debate going forward, because everybody in this room, I think, recognizes that given our budget challenges in this country, we are going to be seeing much tighter budgets in the years to come. There's not a debate between Republicans and Democrats in the Congress as to whether or not we have to reduce our deficits over the next 10-year periods. We have to do that. The debate really is over how we do that. And in that regard, as you know, the Budget Control Act, which passed last August, already requires about a $900 billion reduction in discretionary spending over the next 10 years. And so those goals are going to be very difficult to meet. That will take the discretionary budget of the United States, the part of the budget that involves all the agencies that people in this room work for, the defense and non-defense discretionary budget. It will take it down to the lowest percent of the economy since the Eisenhower administration. So that is going to be a big challenge. Now, the political challenge will be for those who say, well, that's not nearly enough. We want to go much farther. And if you listen to the Republican presidential debate, for example, the debate was not so much about how to make government more efficient. It was about how much of the federal government to dismantle. I mean, I think you all remember the oops moment when Governor Perry couldn't remember exactly which of the federal agencies he was going to totally eliminate and dismantle. And that brings me to sort of the core division that we see into how we approach the deficit reduction challenge here. The Democrats, the president's budget, as well as the budget proposed by the Democrats in the House of Representatives, takes what we call a balanced approach to deficit reduction. It says we need to get there through a combination of cuts, not any additional cuts, I should say, to the discretionary budget. It's our view that the cuts in the Budget Control Act to the discretionary budget, which are the ongoing operations of the federal government, all the federal agencies, that those cuts are already very deep, as set forward in the Budget Control Act. But we do propose additional cuts in what we call the mandatory side of the budget. One example of mandatory budget cut would be reducing direct payments and farm subsidies, that kind of thing. But we would combine those cuts with some additional revenues, revenues generated by closing a lot of unnecessary tax loopholes, revenues generated by asking folks at the very highest end of the income ladder to going back to contributing more toward deficit reduction in the range of what was being done during the Clinton administration, a time when the economy was doing very well. So that's our approach, a balanced approach. It's similar in concept to the framework of the bipartisan commissions, Simpson-Bowles. It doesn't embrace every recommendation, but it says we need to get there in a balanced way, some cuts, but also some additional revenue. Our Republican colleagues have taken a different approach. A great majority of them have signed this pledge from Grover Norquist. You may have heard about it, but it says that they will not raise one penny for deficit reduction through revenue. So you can't close a single tax loophole for the purpose of reducing the deficit. You may hear a lot about tax reform and the need to eliminate loopholes, and we agree that we should do tax reform that eliminates loopholes, and you could even potentially reduce the rate. The difference is the bipartisan commissions have said we need to take some of that revenue for the purpose of deficit reduction. And our Republican colleagues refuse to take one penny of that revenue for the purpose of deficit reduction. And it's not surprising that the author of that pledge, Grover Norquist, has said that his goal is not really deficit reduction. It's deficit reduction in a particular way, meaning to, and I quote, get the government down to the size where you can strangle it in the bathtub. So again, the goal there is not making government more productive and more efficient. It's dismantling major portions of the federal government. And the math is pretty simple, that if you don't have any revenue contribution toward deficit reduction, you've got to whack everything and everyone else. I mean, that's pretty clear. So They would end the Medicare guarantee, very deep cuts to food and nutrition programs, and in their budget, additional cuts in the out years that would fall, in their vision, on the non-defense part of the discretionary budget. In other words, their budget would essentially keep in place the sequester for non-defense programs in the out years. So on top of the $900 billion cuts that will happen in 10 years, it's already part of the law, they would take these additional cuts in the out years. Now, today, later today, in the Budget Committee in the House, you're going to see a lot of this play out because our Republican colleagues will bring before us a proposal that would prevent the first year of the sequester. The sequester, of course, is scheduled to begin January 2nd of next year, unless the Congress, working with the President, find an alternative way to cut $1.2 trillion over the 10-year period. If that doesn't happen, then beginning next January, you'll see these across-the-board cuts. Now, I think everybody would like to avoid the across-the-board cuts. Everyone in this room knows that that kind of meat-axe approach is a terrible way to approach the issue of deficit reduction and budgets. So we need to find an alternative. The problem is our Republican colleagues, in proposing the alternative, again, take a lopsided approach where they cut deeply into food and nutrition programs and other areas in order to prevent that first year of the sequester from taking place. Among the cuts that they're proposing to prevent the sequester, I should point out, is what is effectively a 5% cut in federal pay, because their proposal would require federal employees to contribute over a period of a number of years an additional 5% toward federal pension. So that those monies would be deducted from people's pay. So I just want to make it clear that one of their proposals this afternoon in the Budget Committee for preventing that first-year sequester that will be put forward is a 5% cut in pay. Now, I think everybody knows that the impact of that will make it more difficult to retain and hire high-quality federal employees. That comes on top, of course, of a 2-year pay freeze, but a 5% cut would undoubtedly make it much harder for managers to attract really good federal employees. And of course, then you get that vicious cycle where you're unable to attract high quality federal employees. People don't deliver the services the way people expect. And then, of course, people say, well, they're not doing the job. We can cut more federal government. You get that vicious cycle, which, of course, serves the interests of those whose goal is not government efficiency, but dismantling major parts of government. So in the Budget Committee, Democrats will offer an alternative. Our alternative is very much patterned on the budgets that we put forward and that the White House put forward. We want to deal with this issue by coming up with a balanced approach for 10 years to reduce the overall deficit. And our proposal, again, is a balanced one. And we believe would serve the interests of the country and at the same time make sure that we continue to provide essential government services. But we do, in our budget, as the President's budget does, maintain the component of the Budget Control Act, which does call for a tightening of the belt over the next 10 years. And we're going to need all of you in this room to be very creative and very innovative about how we can do more with less. Now, I'm not someone who, we have to be, and I'm going to end with this point again, we have to distinguish between two goals. One goal is to do more with less, but to make sure that we continue to provide the American people with the services that the federal government provides. That's a very different goal than, as I said at the beginning, those who would want to dismantle major parts of the federal government. What we cannot do is tell the American people that we can continue to provide the services they have today in the federal government while decimating the budget. We can do some more with less. I mean, there's no doubt about that, through productivity and efficiency. But all of you know, there comes a point very quickly that deep cuts to the budget simply mean fewer services to the American people. At NIH, it means fewer researchers looking for treatments and cures to diseases. At the FBI, obviously, it means fewer law enforcement personnel on the streets and monitoring law enforcement around the country. So it has a very real impact, and that is going to be at the core of the political debate going forward this fall. What is the appropriate role of government, and how should we be paying for it? But in the meantime, I just want to thank all of you for the good work that you do. We're counting on you to find ways to provide those essential services, to answer that call to public service in the very best way you can, and calling on you to uphold the highest standards. And for me, it really is personal in many ways. My father was a career Foreign Service officer. He was in the State Department. He was a federal employee. And later on, when my father retired from the Foreign Service, my mother worked as a civil servant at the State Department in the Bureau of Intelligence and Research, which is the intelligence part of the State Department. She actually covered the Afghan desk at the time of the Soviet invasion in 1979, and was one of the people that actually predicted that would happen. She was very knowledgeable and a very hard worker, as both my parents were. So I know the time that federal employees put into the service for the public, and the commitment that many people put into public service. I've seen it firsthand, and I want to salute all of you and just call upon all of you to make sure that we continue to make the American people proud about what you have to offer, and to help us tell the story, about what you do, because it's so easy for those who would like to, cut major parts of government to talk about the faceless bureaucrats. And the reality is, whether it's nurses in veterans hospitals, whether it's the folks in the Intelligence Committee who are helping track down Osama bin Laden, whether it's the people at FDA who are help protecting the safety of medicines, whether it's folks who are protecting the safety of the food supply. The reality is, every day of the year, the American people are counting on all of you to do your jobs well. So thank you for what you are doing. Let's carry forward in the great cause of providing services to the American people, and I look forward to working with you in the years ahead. Congratulations on coming together here.